Hi friends, Mindy here. I have a little process video craft with me situation happening today. I am going to be creating some journaling cards for a journal that I'm creating, and I'm going to be using some packaging and some scraps. So one of the ways that I like to do this is to create like a collage master board. You have a substrate. I've done that before on my channel. You kind of glue things down and whatever. And so what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use some packaging. This is some Tim Holtz packaging and some stencil packaging from By the Will for God. And I'm actually going to be using those as my substrates for my collage master board. And then I'll still kind of cut it apart and make it into journaling cards or tags or whatever to be used in a couple future projects that I'm working on. So I always keep on my desk, I have this little bin, and I just kind of throw into it all my little scraps as I'm working through different projects. So you can kind of see here I have some coffee dyed paper. This is some deli paper that I was stamping on. I have some, this is like from a piano roll. I have some things where I had stamped, and then I just have the rest of it was a ginormous tag. This actually came off of a tag that I had created a master board from. And a lot of times when I have excess ink or paint, I will use a vintage paper and just kind of use that to absorb some of the extra paint here. I have paint that was left over on my brush. I even have some little bits of fabric. Here's some stamping, just hymnal thing. Just, you know, I have a little die cut even in here that didn't quite work all the way. Just a bunch of different things that kind of get collected through time as I'm working on projects. And so again, you can see here, I just mopped up some ink or whatever. And so what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to use these little scraps to create some pretty neutral journaling cards. I have even some fabric. Some of this stuff is from my A House of Books subscription. Just all kinds of different things end up in this little bucket, and then it gets full and I need to do something with it. So I thought what I would do today is create a basically collage master board, but I'm going to be using these as my substrate. So I'm going to trim these down, part of this, because this part right here will make just a beautiful background. So I'm actually going to collage on this side and cover this up, and then this will make a beautiful area that I can write on in my journals. So I am going to put you on fast forward and I will work through this process. I still want to kind of have the idea. A lot of times when I do collage master boards, part of the fun of that is when you go to cut them apart, you do it blind, so they're upside down, so you don't really see what you're cutting. And so I'm going to try to kind of make that happen, even though I'm not using just kind of one basic page. I'm going to be using all of these different pieces. I'll probably kind of tape them together anyway. I will put you on fast forward and we will see what happens making some journaling cards using a collage master board, using some packaging and some leftover scraps from my desk. Okay, so the first thing that I'm going to do is remove the branding from these cards, because again, this side that has the distressed kind of look to it is actually going to be the side that I'm going to use for my journaling spot, and I'm actually going to collage on the other side. So I debated a little bit about how I wanted to cut this down, these ones from Tim Holtz, but I went ahead and trimmed those down, and then I'm just laying them down kind of on my mat here using some mint tape to hold them all together so that I can collage this all as kind of one piece, as if it were one substrate. It doesn't matter to me that they're facing different directions or not exactly the same size. For what my intents and purpose is going to be fine. So I'm just starting in. I'm using a Yoo-Hoo glue stick. You could really use anything for this. I really like the Yoo-Hoo for kind of mixed media type of things. So I'm just going to put a little deli paper on my desk to kind of protect that while I'm doing this glue. And I'm just going to start going through my scraps there in my bin and just randomly gluing them down. You can see I'm just putting some glue, and then I'm just gluing down these this is a piece of paper from that piano roll. I have the coffee dye paper there. There's no rhyme or reason to how I'm doing this. I'm making sure that I'm crossing the seams also, because I want to make sure that it's going to go, you know, from one card to the next. That's just going to make the overall look of it more interesting. So I'm not going to make you watch me glue down all of these pieces, but this is one of those things I just like to do sometimes when I'm just wanting to be creative. Creating collage masterboards is just something that's really fun. It's just a low pressure kind of situation to me. I really just enjoy doing them. So collaging is a lot of fun to me personally. So I'm just going to glue down. I'm going to work my way through all of the different kinds of paper here that I have. I'm trying to keep these pretty neutral is the only thing. That way I can always finish them and decorate the fronts of them to coordinate with the journal that I put them in, or however I end up using them. So I'm just going to go through and kind of glue everything down, trying to keep everything within the neutral colors, and instead of using like the ones that already have paint or that kind of stuff on there. So again, I won't make you watch me do all of that. This is what this is what it looks like when it's done. It looks like a hot mess, and that's totally fine because we're going to pull it all together. So because there's so many like light colors and dark colors, I want to try to kind of balance that out a little bit. So I have some Dina Wakley gesso and some Dina Wakley acrylic paint. This is the color Sand, I believe. And I'm going to use these. My original intention was I watered them down so they're more like a wash. And I was just going to kind of go around the edges of each piece just to kind of blend them together. And I like actually doing that with my finger a little bit better than with a brush. And so, and then in the end, I ended up kind of getting it where I didn't really want it. But I really loved the color of this paint on these papers. And so, I decide that what I'm actually going to do is paint the whole thing in this sand color. I mean, I will water it down some, but I'm gonna again here I'm just kind of going through, trying to go down all of those, you know, edges of all of the papers just to try to keep them, make them cohesive. And I just really liked this color, so I kind of midway decided that I was going to do this just a little bit differently. So I watered that down to make a wash out of this acrylic paint, and I just applied it over the whole entire masterboard. And then I did go in with a baby wipe and kind of dab back some of the paint just in places where I got it a little bit dark or whatever. I want to still be able to see that there are all of these textures underneath there, but I don't want them competing with one another. So having them all kind of have this wash over the top just kind of helps that. And then I want to add back some of the contrast that I lost by painting it all the same color basically. So I'm taking some of that white gesso and a card, and I'm just kind of scraping this along, and it's going to hit some of the high points. But I'm, you know, just very gently kind of scraping it along there just to add in some white, just to kind of break up some of the color and the edges. I'm trying to pay a particular attention to where the edges of the pages are to try to add a little bit of paint there. That's just going to help it like kind of blend from one piece into the next and seem like one cohesive piece. And I realize that this still kind of looks a little bit crazy, and that's fine. This is kind of just the part of that, to me anyway, that's fun, because you're taking it from this into something that is going to have a lot of visual interest. So this is just something that is really fun. There's a lot of different ways that you could do this. You could certainly go in and add color, like actual acrylic paint color or inks, or, you know, there's a million different ways that you can do these masterboards. So what I'm doing now is I'm going to come in with some rubber stamps. This one that I just used was a Your Creative Studio stamp. And then the other ones that I'm going to be using here are from Tim Holtz. These are the correspondence set and the field notes set are the two ones that I used the most for this. And I'm using archival ink because I don't know what else I'm going to be doing to these journaling cards down the road. So I want to make sure I have something that's permanent. So I am using archival ink in ground espresso. And I'm just going to randomly stamp these stamps all over this masterboard just to create some interesting backgrounds. And I'm going to just kind of rotate through those two stamp sets, and I'm making sure that I add different kind of components. So I have this circle stamp, and then I'm going to have some numbers and some bold numbers, and even some that are like some butterflies and just a bunch of different things, but it's all in that same brown. I purposely did that with the brown to kind of keep it really neutral. And now I want to add just a little bit more interest. So I'm going to come in with these rub-ons. These are from 49 in Market. And I have these like ones that are like coffee splatters, and then these ones that look like distressed postage stamps. And so I'm pulling out just a few of the ones that are kind of in the brown, or, you know, the dark, there's like a dark navy blue color, just to keep these really neutral. I'm only going to add a few of these on my master board. I don't want to add too many. And I first started with this brown one, and it just was too much the same, so it kind of just blended in too much. So I went actually with the next ones were kind of in those darker blue and black colors, but I only added just a few of those around. I could have a tendency to go crazy, but I want to leave myself the ability to be able to decorate the front of these down the road and have them match the journals that I'm using them in. So I decided to add a few more of these rub-ons with the ones that look like the little coffee splatters. And I will go over the rest of that and add just a few here and there to add some interest. So I'm just going to add a few more of these little splatters here and there just to give it a little bit of interest. I in some areas that, you know, like especially over the seams or where the papers join up. So now I'm just going to go around and trim off the excess kind of around the outside of all of this, and then I will remove the mint tape that I have on here. And then the first thing that I'm going to do is kind of trim down the natural seams here from each of these cards. And then I will actually take those and then cut them down even more. But I'm trying to do this kind of in keeping with the way that I do a normal masterboard, in that I'm trying to not look at what I'm doing. It just is kind of the fun part of it. So these are about 4 inches wide, I think. So I decided to go ahead and do my, I guess they're maybe 4.5. So I'm doing them about 3 inches wide. So, and then I'll have a couple that are, you know, different sizes, but I can use those for tags or tuck spots or just all kinds of different things. These will have a lot of uses in some junk journals. So, I'm just trying to keep those all face down so I don't see what they look like. The only exception being those ones that were the Tim Holtz packaging, because they're just going to be that size. So this is what they look like when they are finished. This is one of the Tim Holtz ones. I could trim that down and make little tags if I wanted to. And they're just fun to look at and kind of see what happens. I had a little bit of this paper that I didn't get glued down well enough, so I just added some adhesive there. But it's just kind of fun to see how I'm going to use these. So again, I can use these as pockets. I can use them as journaling cards, as tags, just all kinds of different ways. And this one had just a little bit of the edge of the, where I didn't get the paper all the way to the edge when I was collaging. So I just trimmed that down. And this one had a little bit of that stamp on it. They're all really interesting and fun, at least in my opinion. So anyway, these are all my little cards that we made from basically just some trash. So I'm going to go ahead and distress the edge of this one just so you can kind of see how it looks a little bit more finished. But then you could leave these as they are. You could decorate them even more, which is probably what I'll do when I use them in the journals that I put them in. So anyway, if you liked this video, I would appreciate it if you gave it a thumbs up. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And until next time, bye.